Ladies and gentlemen, of all the rogues who have held in your complaints or those that have voiced them, and anybody who's been watching my videos and complain about me complaining. Because of our actions, at least that's what I like to think, because of our collective action, we just got buffed. Not exactly where, everywhere we wanted, but it's a start. So the first thing I decided to do is go into arena setting where the template is applied and test out these changes fresh on an Outlaw rogue. I do want to cover Assassination and see how the damage is, but I'll probably do it in Battlegrounds because I'm not really an Assassination rogue as a main, so I'll probably do it through Battlegrounds and test my damage difference and see just how strong it is. I do also want to try out some of the different bursts of an Assassination rogue to see if I can get some nasty bursts with this 5% agi increase. Well, this buff is actually really good, and I am going to talk about a few things. Before I talk about the buffs and how much excited I am, I do want to say that Windwalker monks got a nerf. Their Fist of Fury is now 85% effective in PvP, so a 15% PvP nerf. And their artifact weapon is 60% effective in PvP, so a whopping 40% nerf. So as a rogue, if you've been a little bit in a class envy with monks, know this, that monks have been adjusted for PvP. And this is good news, because then that makes rogues a little bit more viable. Monks are still going to have the comps that they'll be playable in, but now the monk damage might not be the same as rogue damage, so the utilities might disbalance, so the monk replacing rogue fad might be lessened a little bit, especially with the fact that Assassination is going to be dealing 5% more agility in terms of damage, and Outlaw for certain. This is actually really good news. So let's talk a little bit about some of the changes, and let's talk about how do they affect Outlaw in particular. Since this is an Outlaw channel, I am going to make a video dedicated to this just for Outlaw. So let me take you guys into the footage that I was able to test. I tested a lot of things. I tested Swordmaster versus Ghostly Strike. I tested Cannibal Barrage. I tested Killing Spree just to see where some of our abilities are lying in. And the most important thing that I wanted to test was the Outlaw Rogue's burst potential, especially when you got the right buffs like the crit buff, to see just how much damage we are able to deal when you have all our cooldowns available. I also want to test our damage when it comes to an opener, when you're just doing a soft opener, just to see how much pressure we can put on an enemy by the time that we get our second stun in. And I was actually very much surprised. I was very pleased with the results, and it made me kind of happy because as an Outlaw rogue, I felt like I'm actually dealing damage. You see, in the past, before the 5% agility increase, I would run arenas, and I noticed the same trend. I would kind of sit there, get the right buff, maybe even get a 6 buff, get all my cooldowns together, start popping cooldowns on a healer or DPS, whether it's Battlegrounds or arenas, but then sometimes I feel like I'm hoping that abilities are critting. I'm hoping that everything crits because then I feel like I have potential damage. Here, you basically are elevating the average, the non-crit number of your abilities, so when you crit, it is that much more explosive, that much more exciting, and that much more effective. One of the things that rogues have been able to do in the past, at least for 2 expansions, being Mist of Pandaria and Warlord's Jenner, not every single patch has been that consistent, but in general for the expansion, when you are able to throw an enemy in a full stun lock and pop all your bursts when they don't have a trinket and when they don't have any peels, let's say you CC their DPS and you're going on a healer, if you are able to get their trinket and you have all of your cooldowns available, then you're able to line up as much damage as possible to your enemy and able to score a kill. I know this doesn't sound foreign to any rogues, but in Legion it has gotten much harder to line up all opportunities, all of your bursts on somebody who doesn't have a trinket, let's say 2v2 by yourself. If you are an Assassination rogue, I think that's the only spec rogue that could still possibly do that, and you had to have a little bit extra preparation. There's a reason why rogues are running with the Discipline Priest in 2s, because the Disc Priest is able to give a little bit extra damage in order to score a kill. For a Subtlety rogue, you're not really able to because your burst isn't quite the same as that of an Assassination or an Outlaw. But for Subtlety, what they have, instead of massive damage, they have CC. So you can throw an enemy into a triple sap while your Disc Priest helps you score the kill. It is just as effective and still accomplishes the same results. You score a kill and you win. But for an Outlaw, one of the things that really chimed with me is the ability that you have massive burst every so often, and we basically have it back. This in particular is how much damage it was able to deal to a Leather Wearer when everything was available with Ghostly Strike. Nope, yeah, go ahead and rewind it, just watch it. That was almost 400k a run through. It was exciting, it was great, it was awesome. I loved it. I felt like a kid again. It was like, ooh, excitement. Because I understand that Outlaw is the kind of spec that will have a lot of downtime when it comes to rolling your bones and building up combo points. But when it comes to burst, I want to have consistency and just feel like, yes, when I'm popping damage, oh, it's going to feel good. It's going to feel worth it. If someone peels me, that's fine. There's not a lot I can do because they did peel. They did use cooldowns. They used CC in order to get me away from the healer. That's completely understandable. But when you're able to lock someone down, that means people are going to be a little bit more afraid of rogues, especially Assassination and Outlaw, especially if you have gear and know how to play Spec, especially if you have the right roles. So, this is good for rogues. I don't think this is all of a sudden going to make rogues the most playable class in the game. I don't think it's going to elevate them to such heights, but I do think it is going to give them a better representation and allow Outlaw and Assassination an opportunity to prove themselves all over again in the arena ladders. And we might see more Assassination rogues, we might see more Outlaw rogues, and that'll be a good thing. I don't think there'll be an issue with that whatsoever. I don't think this will be enough of a change in order to make him all of a sudden nobody plays him or seldom anybody plays him to every single DPS on a 2v2 or 3v3 ladder is a rogue. I don't think it's going to be that crazy. But it's going to be really up to the player and what the player decides to do with the spec and what they end up doing with their class, and it's really up to the player. But on average, I do feel like that you are going to be able to excel a little bit harder over in Legion as a rogue with your Outlaw or Assassination. And I'm seeing this results for Outlaw. I can only imagine just how much burst increase you have as Assassination. I can only imagine how much more sustainability you have as Assassination. And I might check it out later, but this is all about Outlaw. A couple things that I do want to talk about are different builds. What kind of builds would you run? And I kind of save until towards the end of the video, because if you are interested in Outlaw, chances are you're sitting through the whole thing. Builds: Swordmaster versus Ghost Strike. As you saw earlier, I'm trying Swordmaster, I'm trying Ghost Strike. The thing is, both of these deal damage now, and both of these have burst potential. For the longest time, I've been a huge fan of Ghost Strike, but the extra global cooldown it takes for you to set it up can sometimes kind of drive into what the spec is all about and make it a little bit annoying to have to drive another global into the spec, and it's just like, can sometimes fuck up your burst when you're opening and whatnot. Saber Slash will give you more combo points, so more finishes to work with. Saber Slash gives you more combo points, so more roll the bones. But Ghost Strike will allow you the ability to line up massive bursts on a single target when you have all of your cooldowns available together. So it's kind of like an all-in, all one-shot spec, which is so satisfying just to say that we have a spec that's an all-in spec with this 5% agility increase. It's just so exciting. I don't know which one will be run in arenas more often. I think I'm going to stay with the Saber Slash for the most part for most situations, because having lower downtime of not having to put up a Ghost Strike on an enemy again and again and again, and basically signaling my enemy team, the enemy team, that hey, I'm about to line up damage on the guy that has Ghost Strike, so watch out for him. Maybe use it to fake out some teams, but like at higher rate, definitely they're going to pay attention to the buff and who I'm putting it on to give them an indication of who I'm going on. And I feel like Swordmaster will end up being the better option because more combo points, less tell to the enemy, and I feel like it'll just be more consistency. But this buff is great. It's awesome. I'm happy. I'm going to be enjoying my Outlaw a lot more often, and I'm definitely going to be checking out Assassination. But what do you guys think about the buff that came out for Outlaw Rogues? Thanks so much for watching. Let me know everything in the comments below while I go get myself some grub. It is 12 in the morning, and I got to render some videos, and I can't do it on an empty stomach.